a glimpse of war in an Asian country, which turned out to be Vietnam. Honestly, at 8.5 years old, I had no clue where it was at. But I remember the helicopters flying around. And I remember seeing the war from sitting behind a machine gun on a helicopter and realizing that my name is Reverend Bill McDonald. And I live in California, which is part of the United States. When I was a child, I was 8.5 years old. And I got very, very sick, ill. I was dying. I went to the doctors. They took me to a hospital in San Jose, California. And basically, they took me away from my parents, told my parents it was probably too late. I was probably going to die. You know, they didn't expect me to live. They put me in a gurney, as you know, with the wheels, and they roll you through the hospital. And I'm rolling through the hospital, and my parents are gone. They went home. I'm all alone, 8.5 years old, just a little boy, right? And then they did some kind of procedures and took some fluids out of my lungs, big needles in my back, and then they put me in a bed and turned the lights off, and I was all alone. No nurses to hold my hand, no nothing, no entertainment, no cell phones, no electronic games, nothing. I mean, just, and I'm laying there that night, and breathing is getting harder and harder and harder. And I felt myself kind of flowing out of my body. It was like my part of me wanted to leave. And it was totally dark. Next thing I know, I'm actually feel myself floating with no body weight, with no body, just in it. I'm just, and I know that the body is below me, and the room is starting to light up. I mean, it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And I look down at the body, and I'm going, that ain't me. that's a poor 8.5 year old body down there, but it's not me. And the body wasn't breathing, and the body had no blood pressure, it had no heartbeat. The body was dead. And there I am realizing that, well, it's only the body that's dead. My consciousness, I don't know what the Vietnamese word for that would be, but consciousness, my awareness of who I am and where I am and what I am, was still alive. I was still connected to the universe, the cosmos. I was connected. And I felt great love. Great, great love. It was like, well, you know, in Vietnam, you got a grandmother in Vietnam, and they hug the grandchildren, they hug them, and all. It's, imagine 1 million Vietnamese grandmothers hugging you and holding you and telling you they love you. That's how it felt. Like 1 million grandmothers. It was just beautiful. And then, so I'm there, and I'm no pain. Pain's gone. No concern or worry the fact that the body's down there and I'm here. It was like, okay, felt natural. Felt like I'm getting ready to go on a journey. And all of a sudden there's these clouds, like you fly in an airplane, you see all the clouds, a white cloud. It was like billowing clouds, all the walls lit up. And then, being young is probably why this happened. Instead of having a life review backwards, I have a life preview forwards 50 years. So I'm seeing scenes unfolding of things that were going to transpire in the course of my life. And as soon as I start watching these things, I go, well, if these things are going to happen, obviously I got to go back to that funky body. I ain't dying. I got to go back, right? So that's back my mind. Oh, I got to go back, right? So I'm looking at this. I see this girl, this high school girl, and I go, she's going to be my wife someday. That's actually true. We met at 14, 1960. So that's 63 years ago. We're married. we're still here. So anyway, so I knew who I was going to marry. I saw my children. I saw where I was going to live. I saw events in the future. I saw what turned out to be President John F. Kennedy getting assassinated in Texas. And I saw the shooting and all the stuff happening and everything. And when I was in high school, I remembered that. And a couple of weeks before it happened, I told high school principal and some teachers and people, they thought I was crazy. Yeah, come on. No, it's going to happen in Dallas, Texas. He's going to get shot. And then, of course, he does. And then people go, how do you know that? Well, I had a preview of it. I also had a glimpse of war in an Asian country, which turned out to be Vietnam. Honestly, at 8.5 years old, I had no clue where it was at. But I remember the helicopters flying around. And I remember seeing the war from sitting behind a machine gun on a helicopter and realizing that, oh, this is through my eyes. This is what I'm going to see. And I shared with you a story about where I was going to be charged with mutiny for refusing a direct order to fire my machine gun in Vietnam. And it ended up saving 30-something children. And one of the reasons for that was when I was in the helicopter, I remembered, you can't do this. I remembered, this is not what it looks like. This is not the enemy down there. Nobody's shooting at you. Even though I'm having a commanding officer, a major, saying, fire, fire, they're saying, fire, fire. And I go, no, sir, no, no. And I was threatened with, I was told that I was going to be court-martialed. And in the U.S. Army, you refuse an order in combat, that could be death penalty or life in jail. No small thing. I mean, they take it very serious. And I said, no, sir, I refuse. I knew it was wrong. So my gunner on the other side, he surprised me because he says, hey, I've been flying with McDonald here for 6 months. He says, if he feels something or he senses something, I'm going to trust him. And he refused. So then both of us going to be charged with mutiny, So finally, we talked the guy into going down and checking in. And it turned out it was a Catholic priest in black, outfit, walking all these children in black pajamas. And they all had shovels and rakes on their shoulder. They were going from this little hamlet to a vegetable garden down this dirt road. There was 30-something kids. And anyway, so had I not been there and it had been somebody else, it would have been a different result. Not that anybody was evil or had bad intentions, but it was like they weren't listening to their heart. They weren't listening to the soul music that runs through them, And so from this vision forward, that was one of the things that changed. Obviously, that saved lives by me having that vision. But I saw all kinds of things. And I saw myself at the end of this thing, I saw myself going to India and going to a place called Babaji's Cave. Babaji is this great avatar yoga. And this is where he disseminated or gave teachings on this special meditation technique of yoga called Kriya Yoga. And I had read a book on yoga that was called Autobiography of a Yogi. I don't know if they know about it in Vietnam, but it's by Paramahansa Yogananda, who came to America in 1920. In 1946, he wrote this beautiful book. And in the book, he talks about this great avatar, this great Indian saint that was in this cave and gave information. And I was in the hospital 1 year after this night, 1 year total bed rest. Just had to stay in bed. And I remember having read that story before I went in the hospital. And in the hospital, I kept visualizing, I'm going to go there someday. I'm going to go there someday. 50 years, almost to the day, when I had my second near-death experience at that cave, which we'll talk about later. But anyway, so I had all these things about the future coming, which made living my life, I don't know if you know the word déjà vu, a French word, or, déjà vu, something's going to happen. It feels like it's happened already. And the experience lasted for, time means nothing. So there's no way to tell you how. It could have been 20 minutes, could have been all night. I have no idea. Total, I'm in a room, no clocks, and time stands still. There's no time. It's just, there's no time, there's no place. Everything is one, and you're one with this love. You feel love, you are loved, and you are love itself. It's all that exists. So I could get more detail on that, but I'm going to kind of give you some other stories here to go into this, because I mean, anybody can have a near-death experience. That's like, okay, it's pretty common nowadays. But having that going forward information was really helpful in my life because it helped me. So I didn't worry about a lot. But when I came back out of the hospital, 1 year in the hospital, I'm talking no entertainment, no television, no radio, no records, no tape recordings, no toys, no visitors, but once a week for about 10, 15 minutes, parents would come. That was it. All the time I was by myself. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because being alone, I focused on my inner world, and I visualized going to Babaji's cave, and I visualized love, and I practiced all these weird things that I thought was a meditation, which I thought I was making up. And then when I eventually, 50 years later, I finally go to India, and some of these things I thought I was making up. I was talking to these gurus and these sadhus and these holy men in India in the Himalayas. And these guys don't speak English, but they're showing me the same things that I made up. I thought I'd made these things up, and it turns out I met this Tibetan monk, and he's showing me this technique where you breathe in the air and everything comes, you're breathing through your navel, through your belly button, through your navel, and the energy's going up your spine and coming down and lights up your chakras and all that. And I thought I'd made that up. And this guy's showing it to me. Didn't speak any English. I didn't speak his language. And yet we spent 3 days together. And I learned more from that man, that trip. Anyway, so one of the things about the journey in the near-death experience was I kept seeing two numbers tumbling in the air, a 2 and a 9. It was like 29, and then the 2 would flip over, and an upside down 2 kind of looks like a 5. So it was like 29, 59. And I had no idea what that meant. None. At the time, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to die at 29. Maybe I'll die at 59. So when I got out of the hospital, I decided, maybe I really need to take care of myself. And so I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. Became a vegetarian. I lived a clean life. I mean, I didn't smoke, didn't do caffeine, no Coca-Cola. I mean, all this stuff. I was clean, right? I wanted to be healthy. So when I'm home the first week out of the hospital, me and my mother were sitting in our front room in our house, and I hear this choir, these angelic voices, like women singing, like beautiful young women singing. It was like teenage girls singing. It was just beautiful. And we couldn't find where the music was coming from. There was no television on, no radio on, no records playing. Neighbors weren't making any. And we went outside the house, walked down a block and blocked the other way. And wherever we went, it was the same level of volume, same sound. So finally, my mother says, the angels are singing. I said, okay, great. But the next day, I had a dog, and the dog ran out of the house onto the road, and a car hit it, boom, at 40 miles an hour. And it's just laying there. It's got its tongue hanging out. It's got blood coming out of both sides of the lips, blood coming out of the nose, blood coming out of the ears, blood coming out of the eyes. And it's just, just whimpering. I mean, And the poor driver was like, "Oh, hey kid, I didn't mean to kill your dog," Well, I just picked up the dog very lovingly and I took it in the house. And I remember spending time in the hospital with nothing to do, that I remember something I had learned about energy, practicing what they call recharging exercises. It's like where Yogananda taught, like if you tighten, pretend like you're lifting a heavy weight and you can tighten up, like that, like you're really lifting something heavy, and you're focusing on energy and light coming down through the crown of your, the chakra here, and all the way down and coming out, and you're charging your body with this energy. And I thought, as I'm carrying them in, I'm going, well, if I'm charging up all this energy, how do I get that energy into the dog, right? Can I do that? So I sat down with the dog. I put the dog in my hands and cradled him. And it was just, laying there. And I put my hands on the dog without squeezing him, but just, like I'm tightening up, just tense. And I'm imagining this energy coming through with a focus on love. I love the dog. So it was love and energy. And when I touched the dog, it was like in America, we have these, when the paramedics come, you have a heart attack, and they got these paddles, defibrillators, you go, clear, and it shocks the heart. It was like that. When I touched the dog, there was like sparks of static electricity out of my fingers. It was like, and the dog goes, it runs around. Everything took him to the veterinarian. He was good. End of story. And I thought, so love and energy heals. So I just took a note on that because it's something I incorporate later on as I get older. All right. So meanwhile, I go to Vietnam, I get married, I do all these things I've seen. Now we're going to skip ahead to my first trip to India. 50 years after I was in the hospital, 50 years after my near-death experience. And I'm going, I'm almost 59. I was 58 and a half. Remember, I had this thing at 8.5 years old. So, and I'm thinking, this is about the end of I'm now at the end of my visions of the future, right? So I'm thinking, is this the end? Am I getting there? So I definitely wanted to see Babaji's cave. So I went to India. And we finally found where it was at. And it was a big, arduous, hard journey to find it, to go to it. We got lost. And we get to the cave, and I had this beautiful meditation there and everything. But I had my heart was really giving some problems. So we're on the way back down from this mountain. It's in the Himalayan mountains. And coming back down the mountains, we were lost. And I'm staying on the edge of a 30-foot cliff. Picture a telephone pole, about that high up, right? Like falling off from a street light, And I'm standing there, my heart's going boom, 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 boom. And I just fall. I fall 30 feet down. The good news is there was little tiny ledges a couple places. So I only bounced, 10, 12 feet. Then I'd bounce another 10, 12 feet and then bounce. And then I end up at the bottom on top of a rock, a boulder, spread out, looking up. There is no breathing. There's no heartbeat. There's no pulse. There's no breath. And I'm going, I've been here before. And I feel myself rising up from the body. And I see my friend standing on this cliff from where I fell, and he's looking down at the body. He doesn't see me rising up, and I'm going, and I look down and I see, that's that body down there. I've seen that before. Except now it's 58 and a half years old, but I know that's not me. I am this consciousness. Life is going on. I am going on. Even without a body, I don't need a body. And I realize that. And I go, well, if I don't go back to the body, that's okay. I've been to Babaji's cave. That's where I wanted to go, right? So I've been to Babaji's cave, and now I die. That's okay. And so I'm up there just enjoying the pain-free weightless experience of being loved. Oh yeah, loved. Once again, 1 million Viennese grandmas, or Italian grandmas, or whatever country you want. They're all hugging me, right? I'm feeling bliss. I'm feeling joy. And I really don't want to go back. But I look down, and crawling out of the grass across my feet is a cobra, with the head, with the hood, it's going across my feet. And I get so excited, not from fear, but from love, because I just felt such great love for that snake. Makes no sense, but trust me, I really loved the snake. And so as the snake was crawling across my feet, it was like, remember the paddles again? Here, boom. It was like, whoa. I jump up, whoop, take a breath. Heart's beating. It's back on, it's beating. I'm breathing. And I'm trying to grab this snake as it's slithering through the grass. And I got my hands like this around the snake, not able to touch my fingers. It's like this. And I can't touch my fingers. It's that big between there. It's a big snake, right? So I chase it to a little waterfall, gets behind it. I just felt so blissed out. It was like this snake had come to save my life. It was like, and I loved the snake, and I felt love back from the snake. All right, so we were lost, but we finally find our way back. We get back to the ashram where we were staying at, and there was a swami there, and he goes, "Did you find the cave?" Right, because we didn't have any guides. And I go, "Yeah," and I told him the whole story about falling down, having a heart attack, all that other stuff, and I was told basically that those that have the most arduous or the most hazardous, the most dangerous, the hardest trip to the cave get the greatest blessings. I thought that was really kind of cool. So, all right. So now a normal person, not a man, but a woman probably, would say, I just had a heart attack. Maybe I should go to the doctors, right? Let's go check that out, right? Now, I finished another couple of months in India. Don't go to no doctors. Like, hey, I'm okay now, right? So I get home, and I end up having 6 heart attacks at home before, collapsing and everything. Then I finally go, you know what? Maybe there's something really going on here. So I tell my wife, I'm gonna go drive to the hospital. I'm not feeling good. I'm gonna check out. Well, I'm having a heart attack, full-blown heart attack. So I drive 7 miles, park my car, get in line, go through all this stuff. Finally come and see me, and they go, "Sir, you're having a heart attack." I said, "Yeah, no, I'm having a heart attack." Put me on a gurney. They roll me in the room. Doctor comes. They want to do surgery. They want to do all this stuff. And just before I came there, I found out that a high school friend of mine and a guy I went to grade school with had died. His name was Paul O'Brien. And he and I were born in the same hospital, an hour or two apart, in 1946. We were both born March 16th. And our mothers were, in the same medical room, and we were babies next to each other in baskets, right? But we didn't know that until we were 10, 12 years old. We found that out. And go, oh, yeah. Anyway, so if you believe in astrology, because I'm thinking, well, if there's anything with astrology, what's happening with him, right? Because he was on a good diet. He drank, he did drugs, he smoked, he did caffeine, he did it all, right? Well, I was told just before I went to the doctors, he died that year. He didn't make 58 and a half. I mean, he died at 58 and a half. He didn't make 59. So I'm laying there, and the doctor's coming back, and he wants to do all this stuff. And I go, "Doctor," I says, "this is not fair. What's going on here?" He says, "What do you mean not fair?" He says, "Look, I'm a vegetarian. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I meditate, exercise. I walk. I go all this stuff, and he looks at me and he goes, "Well, Mr. McDonald," he says, "looking at your medical charts and stuff and your family history, I would have assumed you would have been dead by 29. Remember 29? I would have assumed you'd been dead already by 29. Had you not lived that kind of life, he says, you'd been dead 3 decades ago. He says, and now you're only a couple of weeks away from being 59. And I'm at the end now of my predictions and stuff. But now I'm laying there thinking, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm going, my friend's already died, born the same day, right? Hour apart. And he's gone. And I'm going, wow. And then he just tells me that. And that fit into the part of the vision that I had when I had my first near-death experience, where I had the two numbers, 29, 59. And then it made sense. Had I not had a good diet, and had I drank, and had I smoked, and I did all these things, then at 29, I would have been gone. Yet here I was, just a couple weeks away from 59. Well, I'll give you a spoiler alert. I didn't die. So I went on. Meditation is the foundation for spiritual life. But a lot of people do a formal meditation, at night before they go to bed, in the morning before they start their day. And I'm trying to tell people it's also important to live this spiritual life in between those meditation times. You don't need a special time to spend with God. It's about love. So if you truly love God and you're meditating to love God and be loved by God, then that's the greatest way to advance. But simply, meditation is about calming the mind, calming the breath, trying to get the thoughts away, right? And if you don't have a technique, you'll be fighting those thoughts forever. Like, for example, if I told you, you want to become a saint, don't think about monkeys jumping on a bed. And once I tell you can't think about that, if you do that, you're going to make it. That's all you can think about. Well, I'm not going to think about it. You're going to think about it. You can't get those thoughts out of your head. So emptying the mind, I found the easiest way to do that is to fill it with love. And so love is a great meditation. And depending on your religious beliefs, I don't care if you could do it with Buddha, you can do it with Jesus, you can do it with anybody you think is a spiritual thing. You don't even have to have a vision of God. You can just say your soul, the cosmic consciousness, just the oneness. It doesn't matter. But you have to fall in love with that divine force. So the simplest meditations are to take, if you're into religion at all, take any statue, picture, anything that means anything to you religiously, and you put it in front of you in a darkened room, put some candles in front of it, and stare at it. Just focus on a picture of Buddha, Jesus, doesn't matter, whatever, Krishna, doesn't matter. Focus. And just all your thoughts, I love you, God, I love you, Jesus, I love you, Buddha, whatever it is. That's your inner mantra that's going on. That's an old Indian from India, and an old Christian meditation is just to meditate on an object and focus on that. That's the simplest. There are much better ways to go on the breath, what they call the Hong Saw technique, the Om technique, Kriya Yoga, all these things, which we can come back and discuss, because you're talking about something that's, people get hung up on the techniques, and then they're using their mind too much. They're analyzing it, and then they're analyzing how well they're doing the meditation and everything else. But meditation gives you focus. If you want to study and you want to learn, if you're going to school, most especially, you're going to a job, meditating in the morning just sets up that energy in your mind, that frequency in your mind where you're receptive. You've calmed the mind so it can receive better. So actually, if you want to start your day with love and purpose, I always start my day with a prayer to the divine. Use me. Whoever needs help, I'm there. Use me. Give me the wisdom I need. Give me the tools I need. Give me the courage I need. I never pray to God to take away my problems. I just ask for tools to handle them. So if I come back again, we can talk about prayer. We can talk about meditation. We can talk about a particular one or two techniques. if people want to join this in a group thing, that we can do that, or you can share this with others, either way. But yeah, meditation uh, changes your life. It gives you focus, gives you calmness. There's people that say, well, I meditate with music or nature. Well, no, you relax with music, and you relax, taking a walk in nature or something, or the ocean. Those are beautiful things that relax you and calm your mind. But it's not like a real deep meditation where the sole focus is to love God. That's it. It's to focus on loving God. And you don't need a religion. You don't need any dogma. You don't need any beliefs. Just believe in love. That's it. Nothing else matters.